Studies show that the average person makes over 35,000 decisions every single day, and most of those decisions are driven by what other people think. We are exhausted, overwhelmed, and quietly miserable because we are giving our mental and emotional energy to things that do not matter. And yet, the solution has been sitting in plain sight all along. In the next 10 minutes, you are going to discover why chasing happiness actually makes you more miserable, how the most successful and fulfilled people in the world think about problems and pain, and the one counterintuitive idea at the heart of Mark Manson's best-selling book that completely rewires how you see your own life. The answer is not about positive thinking. It is about something far more honest and far more powerful. Mark Manson published The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F in 2016, and it became one of the fastest-selling self-help books in modern history. It has sold over 14 million copies worldwide and spent years on the New York Times bestseller list. That kind of reach does not happen by accident. It happened because Manson said out loud what millions of people were already quietly thinking, that the endless parade of positivity and motivational content was not actually helping anyone. People were tired of being told to smile more and think happy thoughts. They wanted something real. Manson is not a therapist or academic. He is a blogger turned author who built a massive online following by writing with radical honesty about life, relationships, and personal growth. His voice is direct, sometimes blunt, and completely unfiltered. That tone is not just stylistic, it is the entire philosophical point. The book argues that the modern obsession with feeling good all the time is actually one of the primary sources of human suffering. And once you understand why, you cannot unsee it. The central idea of the book is deceptively simple. Not giving a F does not mean not caring about anything. It means being deliberately selective about what you care about. It means reserving your limited emotional and mental resources for the things that genuinely align with your deepest values. Most people give their energy to everything: other people's opinions, social media comments, minor inconveniences, status symbols, and then wonder why they feel completely drained and directionless. Manson introduces what he calls the feedback loop from hell. Here is how it works. You feel anxious about something. Then you feel anxious about the fact that you feel anxious. Then you feel guilty for not being able to stop feeling anxious. The emotion compounds on itself until it becomes completely paralyzing. The same loop happens with anger, sadness, and failure. Modern culture makes this worse by constantly telling people they should be happy, and that negative emotions are problems to be fixed rather than information to be processed. But here is what nobody talks about. Negative experiences are not the enemy. They are the raw material of growth. Every meaningful thing you have ever built came through difficulty, discomfort, and struggle. The goal is not to eliminate pain. The goal is to find pain that is worth something to you. Manson calls this the question of what struggle you are willing to tolerate. Anyone can dream about running a marathon. The real question is whether you are willing to wake up at 5 in the morning when it is cold and your legs hurt. Your answer reveals what you actually value, not what you wish you valued. One of the most striking concepts in the book is Manson's take on the self-esteem movement. For decades, psychologists and educators pushed the idea that building children's self-esteem was the foundation of success and happiness. Schools stopped giving bad grades. Participation trophies replaced genuine achievement. And the result, as multiple studies have since shown, was a generation that reported higher self-esteem scores but lower resilience, lower tolerance for failure, and higher rates of anxiety and narcissism. Feeling good about yourself without a foundation of real accomplishment turns out to be genuinely harmful. Manson argues that the solution is not more self-esteem, it is better values. And not all values are created equal. He draws a clear line between what he calls good values and bad values. Good values are internal, controllable, and process-based. Things like honesty, curiosity, persistence, and integrity. Bad values are external, uncontrollable, and outcome-based. Things like fame, wealth, constant approval, and pleasure. When your values are built around things you cannot control, you will always feel powerless. When they are built around how you act and who you choose to be, you have real agency. This brings us to one of the most philosophically dense sections of the book, Manson's theory of responsibility. He makes a distinction between fault and responsibility that most people never think about clearly. Fault is about causation. Responsibility is about ownership. Many terrible things happen to people through no fault of their own: illness, abuse, tragedy, injustice. Manson is not dismissing any of that, but he argues that even when something is not your fault, taking responsibility for how you respond to it is still entirely your choice. And that choice is everything. He uses the example of a man named William James, often considered the father of American psychology. James suffered from severe depression and health problems for much of his young life. At a low point, he made a deliberate decision to spend 1 year acting as if free will existed. He chose to take full ownership of his responses, his choices, and his direction. That single decision changed the entire trajectory of his life. He went on to become one of the most influential thinkers in American intellectual history. The circumstances did not change. His relationship to them did. Manson also challenges the way most people think about identity. He argues that identity is not something you discover. It is something you construct through repeated action. And here is where it gets interesting. Most people wait to feel confident before they act. Manson says that is completely backwards. Action comes first. Confidence and identity follow. You do not become a writer by feeling like a writer. You become a writer by writing, failing, revising, and writing again. The feeling of being a writer comes after the work, not before it. The book also addresses the concept of certainty, and this is where Manson draws on some genuinely serious philosophy. He argues that our brains are not truth-seeking machines. They are meaning-seeking machines. We constantly construct narratives and identities and beliefs that make sense of our experience. But that drive for certainty also makes us rigid. It stops us from learning and growing. Manson references the philosopher Alan Watts and the Zen Buddhist concept of the beginner's mind, the idea that the more you think you know, the less capable you are of actually seeing reality clearly. True growth requires being willing to be wrong. Not just occasionally, constantly. Manson also tackles one of the most uncomfortable truths in the book, the reality of mortality. He dedicates an entire chapter to what he calls the denial of death, drawing on the work of psychologist Ernest Becker. Becker argued that most of human civilization, our religions, our cultural institutions, our status games, our obsession with legacy, is essentially an elaborate coping mechanism for the terror of knowing we will die. Manson does not say this to be dark. He says it because confronting mortality directly is one of the most clarifying experiences available to a human being. When you genuinely internalize that your time is finite, trivial concerns fall away almost automatically. So what does all of this actually mean in practice? It means choosing your problems carefully. It means building your identity around how you behave, not how you feel. It means accepting that pain is not a signal that something has gone wrong. It is a signal that you are engaged with something real. It means having the intellectual honesty to examine your values and ask whether they are actually serving you or quietly destroying you. Most people never ask that question. And that is exactly why most people feel stuck. The Subtle Art of Not Giving AF is not a comfortable book.